Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cubic Dimensions, number 5, I believe it is. And we're going to have a lot to talk about in the next hour or so. Christian is joining me, as usual. Unfortunately, his camera isn't working, and so he wasn't the odd one out. I also turned off mine. But let's get right to it. Stories we're going to try to cover are Clinton announcing her VP pick, highlights from the Republican National Convention, the WikiLeaks story in reference to the Democratic National Committee and convention, a few anecdotes from the last few days from my end, the failed coup in Turkey, and if we can get to it, the Virginia Supreme Court overturning Governor Terry McAuliffe's action of, I believe it was an executive order to allow felons to vote in Virginia. So, and funny enough, he is in some way connected to Tim Kaine. It's kind of weird. So Terry McAuliffe and Tim Kaine were both, or Terry McAuliffe currently is, Democratic governors of Virginia, and also chairs of the Democratic National Committee. Kind of weird. And funny that they're both in the national spotlight this week. But anyway, so first is first. Tim Kaine has been picked as Hillary Clinton's running mate. He is the junior U.S. Senator from Virginia. He was just elected 2 years ago, or sorry, 4 years ago. Yeah, during 2012. For those of you unfamiliar with him, before he became the senator from Virginia, which for some reason a lot of presidential and vice presidential candidates like to be one-term senators now, I guess. Before that, he was the chair of the Democratic National Committee from 2009 to 2011, preceding Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who we'll get to later, has just announced is going to resign as the chair of the DNC. Before that, he was governor of Virginia from 2006 to 2010, and then for the term before that was lieutenant governor of Virginia, and then for the term before that was mayor of Richmond, Virginia. So let's dissect this. So, Christian, you being a outsider looking in, do you have anything first to comment about Tim Kaine as the Hillary Clinton's running mate?
So well, first of all, let's just note that nobody outside of you, this doesn't matter. But I think perhaps you could say that's the problem is especially as we're going to get to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. You have this whole issue of it's something we've said a lot on this channel is you have to get your base out to vote. That's when the Democrats win, when they can convince their base that they should vote now. And that's why Obama came in his first election and swept with such, they swept the Senate and the House and the presidency. Because, the Democrats were able to get their base out to vote. That wasn't them convincing, centrist Republicans to vote. That was getting their base out to vote. And that's when the Democrats really do well. And then you could see when Obama tried to negotiate to try and get those centrists, and those centrist Republicans to vote for the Democrats, his base didn't come out. And they lost, and this is how they've slowly lost the House and the Senate. So I think by choosing Tim Kaine, it's just a complete lack of understanding that problem. It's someone cashing in a political favor over the actual success. It's a political favor over the success of the party. It's a political favor over, in my opinion, the better good of the country. Because really, I prefer the Democrats to have the glut of power than the Republicans. So that's my perspective, which is probably not any different than an American perspective anyways, because really, as I said, Canadians don't care there's no unique Canadian twist to this because no Canadian cares who the VP is.
Yeah, that's kind of the trouble of having this discussion. And again, everybody watching, I'm trying to get more and more people. I just compiled a list, actually not just a few minutes ago, of potential guests we can have on. And, hopefully in the coming weeks, we might be able to have a different perspective on this show. Hopefully, and someone who is kind of undecided when it comes to Clinton versus Trump. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot of undecided people. Most people I know are pretty decidedly, finger to both of them. But besides the point. So Tim Kaine. So what Christian touched on was that uh, Tim Kaine is being used as sort of a a reeling tool for the Clinton campaign to try to get conservative voters. And this was the big debate around the VP pick was, is it going to be a more conservative Democrat? Because Clinton has been making a lot of moves recently to try and sway anti-Trump conservatives to vote for her. Is it going to be that, or is it going to be a more progressive Democrat to try and reel in the Sanders voters who been have a very bruised opinion of Hillary Clinton with the primary season? And that's not a small chunk of the Democratic Party. That's 45% of the Democratic Party right there that has said, we do not like Hillary Clinton. Now, whether or not that means they won't vote for her in November is a different question, because there obviously is a good chunk of those people who will say, all right, she's the nominee, I'm going to vote. But considering the broad, big tent, I guess, in terms of ideology grasp that Sanders has, and especially in pulling people into the party, I think it's very hard. A very good case can be made that a significant chunk of Sanders voters would not even dream of voting for Hillary Clinton ever in their lives, myself being among them. But back to the main point. So Tim Kaine, well, he isn't the most conservative Democrat in the Senate. He also isn't one of the most liberal. He seems to be relatively okay in the environment. He recognizes climate change. However, most of the energy changes that he recommends uh, don't really do much. I think he's in favor of clean coal, which is
Non-existent.
doesn't make sense. It's an oxymoron. Although he is against Keystone XL, which is cool. Important note: a story just came out. I believe it was either the Hill or the Huffington Post said that. So Tim Kaine was originally in favor of the TPP, but now that since he's joined Clinton, who's anti-TPP, he's going to come out against it. I said for the last few weeks that whoever is her pick will probably do that, but that was more in the sense of if an Obama administration cabinet member also joined her on the ticket, which was my hope, and I was hoping it would either be Tom Perez, the Labor Secretary, or the HUD Secretary, Julian Castro. He's flip-flop on abortion. That's important. Interestingly enough, he hasn't flip-flopped on gay marriage. This is a very interesting thing, I think, especially coming from a state like Virginia. It says here on his Wikipedia article, in 2006, Kaine campaigned against an amendment to the Virginia state constitution to bar same-sex marriage. That is very interesting because he, at the same time, had just been elected governor. So, and that was at the time when every state was trying to pass a constitutional amendment to their state's constitution barring same-sex marriage. Although he didn't actually come out in support of it until around the same time President Obama did. But still, interesting. He's in favor of right to work.
That's
oh boy.
worrisome. That's
That's
not
great.
good.
He's in favor, as you'd expect from almost any Democrat in the Senate. He's in favor of bombing the hell out of anything. And my saying that is he is supported action in Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, and against ISIS. However, has been an advocate for more congressional oversight when it comes to military action, so that's good. He's against capital punishment, though he did oversee some death sentences while he was governor. Mind you, a lot of his views on social issues come from him being a Catholic, so that's probably why he's against the death penalty, and that's often a good excuse for Democrats to use to be against it and not seem just like you just want to be against it, for facts or anything. He supports background checks and the kind of lukewarm uh, sort of gun control that Democrats have been advocating for, but not really that much. Interestingly enough, he was initially after uh, after the crash, he was very much in favor of financial regulation, but since then hasn't really done that. Well, in fact, it says he signed a bipartisan letter to the Financial Protection Bureau, which is what Elizabeth Warren set up, that urged them to carefully tailor its rulemaking under Dodd-Frank regarding community banks and credit unions so as to not unduly burden these institutions with regulations aimed at commercial banks. AKA, he didn't want community banks and commercial banks to be separate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a concern.
Yeah.
He's all right on taxes. He supports letting the Bush tax cuts expire. That's interesting. He supports NAFTA. Great. He's good on immigration. He's been actually one of his bigger issues because he speaks fluent Spanish and went to Honduras, so that's interesting. He, interestingly enough, which I find very confusing, and we can probably talk about this because this is about the end of his article. He strongly disagrees with the Citizens United ruling and has been a big advocate of public financing of elections. And that's really weird because here's the thing. 99% of the people who support the TPP, I thought it was 100%, but apparently not. 99% of them do it because the people who are advocating for it pay for their reelection.
Yeah.
Kane, however, has been, obviously not as much as Bernie Sanders, but more so than most other Democrats, has been a strong supporter of really in-campaign finance.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
That's interesting.
Care to speculate?
Well, it could be the case that it's kind of like Obama, where he's like, I don't like it, but if you pressured me to fix that problem, it's sort of like I agree it's bad, but I don't agree it's something I'm going to address. And it also might just simply be a case that he also sort of agrees with the mainstream Democrat view that, look, I don't like all this corporate money in politics, so I think the answer is make it public what is being spent. I know that's not what he's publicly saying because that's not exactly the popular position, but it's potentially the case that he's kind of like Obama, that he'll talk a good game, do something else, and say, well, I believe in slow change.
Well, okay, so he does have, to that point, he does have a quote. He sent a letter in 2015 with some other Senate Democrats to the chairwoman of the Security and Exchange Commission that said, The ruling should be has reversed long-standing precedent and has moved our country in a different and disturbing direction when it comes to corporate influence in politics. Uh, the article goes on to say they urged the SEC to require publicly traded companies to disclose political spending to their shareholders to quote increase spending in the U.S. Increase transparency. My bad. In the U.S. political process.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
So
go ahead.
okay. I guess I don't know because at least from what I've read here, maybe I should look up a little bit more. He actually seems like I see what you're saying. Like he's not being a lion on it, kind of like Obama.
Yeah.
But honestly, especially in the language of that letter, while it isn't as strong, I heard a little bit of Bernie Sanders in it.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a little bit of let's stop having average Americans' voices be drowned out by corporate influence.
Yeah. So if he's for that, like, look, if that's really where he is, and he thinks it's important enough that he can convince Hillary Clinton that it's something that's important enough that she should be doing.
Well,
Then,
that's the well that sorry. To that point, that's actually another big piece of news that we missed last week. She actually came out and said in her first like 150 days, which are supposed to be the most effective in a presidency,
mm-hmm.
She's going to push for a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United.
Okay, so that would be. So yeah, I'm still not sure how much I trust that would happen, but hey, because let's remember we're coming at this from the perspective Barack Obama said that that's in that same period he was going to close Guantanamo, and well, we know how that turned out. So
well, what I'm saying by that is that to your point of him pushing her in that direction, if they are elected, she's already made the commitment.
Yeah. So I'm saying if he can be the reason that if he can push her to follow through, be one of those voices in the in that room saying, "Yo, like we should do this. This is a thing we should try and accomplish." Because in my opinion, if they do that and they're middling for the rest of the 7.5 years, I will say this was worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's a significant enough issue that the ramifications of it, all the way down to those little, congressional races, would make it worth it. So, yeah. So if that can be the effect of Tim Kaine, I'm fine with him. But nonetheless, I still think that from a political stance, just looking at this election, the Democrats really have to hammer that then to Bernie Sanders supporters, not allow that to become obscured, because that's if you can sell that I think a lot of those holding out Bernie Sanders supporters will say, you know what, I might not like her for this whole host of issues, but this is worth it. This is I can suck it up and accept Hillary Clinton if this is something she and her vice president are actually really concerned enough to work towards. And I'm willing to give the Democrats my vote in the Senate and the House, because I think they need that manpower to achieve that.
So basically what you're saying is that they should campaign on this?
Yeah, pretty much.
I can see them doing that. Although at the same time, just the sheer amount of just anti-Trump, purely just anti-Trump rhetoric that they've been pushing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how big of a deal that might be.
Well, I think,
or any issue for that matter.
It's the whole. It's fine to run on, at least we're not them, but at some point, you need to convince people. And this
is why it's better.
this is why we are the best of the alternatives you have, because you could also just because the thing is, a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters say, yeah, we agree, he's horrible, but I'll still vote for the Greens because I don't like you, and that doesn't necessarily matter for the presidency, because I feel that's a foregone conclusion for the most part, but that matters in other elements of the U.S. government that are equally important.
Mm-hmm. One last thing, because we should move on soon.
Yeah.
One last, or I should say, two last things that I want to hit on about Tim Kaine. So my big problem is that, so on paper, right, like what we just covered, with the exception of his financial, his stances on financial regulation and trade,
Mhm.
and foreign policy, most, and of course the right to work thing. In retrospect, if you look at his record, it actually isn't that bad for someone who considers themselves a progressive.
Yeah.
The thing that really hit me when I was looking over him, because I'm already familiar, I was already familiar with Tim Kaine before this, because I followed his election to the Senate 4 years ago. But one thing that really struck me now that I'm going over his policy positions again is his flip flop on abortion. Because initially, in his political career, he said all the way to when he was running for governor, he was saying that he wanted to that he was both personally against abortion and to some extent politically, in terms of actual policy, against abortion.
Yeah.
But then, of course, he flipped, and then not so much the same thing, but a similar deal with gay marriage, or sorry, same-sex marriage, when evolving into saying yes, we need it.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the problem right there. Is the thing that attracted, I think, a lot of people to Bernie Sanders was that he's been consistent since day one.
Yeah.
He has been on the right side of policy issues since day one. And while it is good to have people in politics who do change their minds and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you know what? I was wrong. It's better if we have someone who's been fighting the good fight since day one.
So yeah, that would be better, but I think those kind of issues, certainly with abortion especially, I think those are the places where, and let's keep it in context. He's the vice president. He's not gonna be the president. Um, those are things where Hillary Clinton, I think, feels so strongly personally in the opposite direction, enough so that it's irrelevant that he might feel otherwise. I don't think he's going to convince Hillary Clinton to be anti-abortion or to.
Oh no!
If there's anything I would be worried about from that, and maybe this is what you were getting at, it's that whatever the next social issue fight is, let's suggest it's transgender rights, is that they might be slow on the uptake to actually come out and be on the right side of that issue.
That's okay. That second part is part of my concern. I'm not so much concerned that he'll push her on the abortion issue, because I don't see her really being pushed on that at all unless her donors tell her to. I know she did come out at some point recently and say, I'm willing to give some leeway on abortion. I feel like it's such a non-issue now. It doesn't really matter. And I don't mean in the sense that abortions don't matter, because they are an important issue. I just think in this election cycle, and probably in the next 4 years, abortion probably won't be at the forefront, and there aren't going to be a lot of people screaming from the rooftops, "We need to stop this," because that's been on the downcline, I think, for the last 10 years of people doing that.
Yeah.
But my problem is that Hillary Clinton's image has been of a liar and of a flip-flopper and of corrupt.
Yeah.
And the last thing she needed was a vice president who looks the exact same. And while Kaine doesn't look the exact same, he certainly looks like a flip-flopper just like her.
Hmm.
At least in the cases of those social issues that I pointed out. So I really, I don't like that a lot. I think it would have been better if she had picked someone more consistent. And on that note, I had been saying that I think she needs a young Latino to be her vice president because, you know, a woman and a Latino, especially a young person, against Trump is a really symbolic team against Trump, especially with picking Mike Pence. And also having having that person be progressive and young is even better because that helps in reel in the party, you know, the hardcore party people and the Bernie people.
Mhm.
But no, Hillary Clinton picked someone who's more middle of the road, more just wishy-washy, just milk toast, who doesn't really offend many people to try to win over conservative voters, which I don't see happening. Because the problem she has is that conservatives have already had 8 years of a Clinton. They've had even more of that since she's also been in the public light since her husband left office.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think it's very hard to find any registered Republican or any self-identified conservative who looks at Hillary Clinton and says, "You know what? I don't like that Trump guy, but I'll be voting for her." I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're either voting for Gary Johnson, who's rising the polls, by the way, or they're going to stay home because it's between the absolutely awful, racist, just blabbermouth that's ruining your party that you can vote for, or it is the symbol of nepotism and corruption on the other side. And I think most mainstream conservatives who don't want to vote for Donald Trump aren't going to be voting for Hillary Clinton, so she's really not helping herself.
Yep. I got nothing. That's true. Well, yeah. You want to move on to the next thing?
Yeah, sure, because we took way too long on that.
Yeah.
Because there are two other huge stories that we need to be talking about. So the next huge story is, of course, the Republican National Convention happened just this past week. 4 nights of just absolute terror for, you know, sane-minded Americans to be watching. So I have an article here that has the highlights. I didn't actually watch any of it that much because I tried watching. I was, of course, on vacation in New Hampshire. I turned on the TV once it went on primetime around 10 o'clock, and the person speaking was Rudy Giuliani, so I immediately turned it off. So yeah, of course, the big thing from the first night was Melania Trump taking from Michelle Obama's speech. I don't think there's much to say about that other than, of course, like I mean, it's bad because you shouldn't be plagiarizing other people, and it was just stupid. Like, really, who steals a speech from someone who's in the exact same position as you only 8 years ago?
You want a fun good story?
What?
Guess what Stephen Harper did?
He ripped off Michelle Obama?
Oh, it would be even better if he'd done that. My name is Michelle Obama. And I love my husband. No, he stole the Australian Prime Minister's speech. And here's the best part. It wasn't 8 years ago. It was 4 weeks ago.
Oh, my God. Well, no, Joe Biden did something similar. In 1988, he ran for president.
Yeah.
And he actually stole a speech. And I think it was back when he was first elected, that Neil Kinnock, the leader of the British Labour Party back during the Thatcher years, he stole his speech, and that ended. No, Christian, that ended his presidential campaign. He was leading in the polls, and that ended his campaign.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Meanwhile,
How times have changed.
Well, and that I don't understand, because the same goes with like this night. Because I just said Rudy Giuliani because he spoke the first night when Chris Christie was running for president.
Yeah.
He made up the lie
Yeah.
that he was appointed U.S. District Attorney for New Jersey the day before 9/11, as if that had anything to do with 9/11.
Yeah.
And that also his wife worked in the Twin Towers when they were attacked. She actually worked down the street. And while that wasn't the main reason his campaign ended, it was, I think, more so because of Bridgegate.
Yeah.
It really hurt him.
Yeah.
And because that was his big ad. That's what was all in his big ad. Meanwhile, they push up to the front stage on day one, prime time, for the RNC, Rudy Giuliani, who was mayor of New York City, when 9/11 happened. Not only did he tell the workers, the responders, in the days after, who were still sifting through the rubble looking for stuff and people,
Yeah.
keep going in, even though he was getting reports that they would get cancer, which they did. Not only did he do that, but then when he ran for president in 2008, that was his big thing. Oh, I was mayor of New York City when 9/11 happened, and I was a great leader. And he didn't do bullshit after he left mayor, because he stopped being mayor. Yeah, his term expired only a few months after 9/11. There's no Rudy Giuliani fund for 9/11 victims. There's no the Rudy Giuliani bill of 2002 to help 9/11 first responders. He just went back to being a lawyer. And then he ran for president. And they push him to the front of the stage for him to give this bullshit speech about how crime went down in his city, even though it went down everywhere while he was mayor across the country, and how he was mayor when 9/11 happened.
Well, I don't even know. I don't know what to tell you other than like it's okay. Yeah, I got nothing. Like this is just what they do. This is what they do. Like when reality was thrown out the window, you might as well go whole hog and really throw it out the window. It's not exactly what you were. It's similar though. It goes to. Did you see? We were going to talk about this, so I guess it's fine to bring it up. Jon Stewart, when he did his whole thing on the Republicans, and he like zeroed in on Hannity, and I think this is perfectly encapsulates the problem in the U.S. Is Jon Stewart attacks Hannity by literally providing you clips of Hannity contradicting himself for like 3 minutes and mocks him for doing so. Then Hannity tries to make a comeback where he throws random schoolyard insults at Jon Stewart. He didn't like prove Jon Stewart was wrong. He didn't show clips of Jon Stewart contradicting himself. He just said, you're a liberal and you don't give enough money to charity. You aren't paying off the U.S. debt with all of your money. And it's like, what's that?
Okay, no. See, that's the thing. So I'm glad you brought that up, and we were actually going to talk about that. Is that video, because Jon Stewart hijacked, quote unquote, Stephen Colbert obviously let him take over a show, do a little like 5-minute response to the RNC, and part of that response actually was how Jon Stewart, when the 9/11 First Responders Reauthorization Act came up in Congress, nobody wanted to vote for it for whatever stupid reason, and he put public pressure on them to do so.
Yeah.
And then Sean Hannity, so he did that. He was the only person in the mainstream media who did that when he hosted The Daily Show.
Yeah.
I want to say it was back in 2006.
Yeah.
Sean Hannity didn't say bullshit about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wants to get up there and say, oh, you don't do enough, for charity or anything like that, or helping out America. What do you do? Like, I want to know what Sean Hannity has done. Not in the past 15 years since 9/11. Not in the past 10 years. Not in the past Obama president. I want to know what he did in the last year for 9/11 victims. I want to know what he did for police officers who he claims to care so much, Blue Lives Matter and all that stuff, or All Lives Matter. I want to know what he did. I want to know what Rudy Giuliani did. for Blue Lives Matter and stuff like that. I want to know what Donald Trump has done. I want to know what Chris Christie has done. Oh, that's right. They haven't done anything. The Republican Congress has literally done nothing. They have been taking more vacation days than any other American probably can in their lifetime in the past 6 years since they've had control of at least the House.
Well, that goes the whole Noam Chomsky, this is not a parliamentary party anymore kind of deal. Look, I don't like the conservatives because I don't like the conservatives here, but the conservatives pass bills. I just happen to disagree with them. They actually do something, like they actually govern when they have power. But I just disagree, which is fine. That's what's supposed to happen. The Republicans just I don't know why they just don't do things, and then when things go wrong, they find someone to blame for the things going wrong. Or
I can tell you why, Christian. Because the people who funded their campaigns, Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, the like, don't want government to be doing anything.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. I keep rewatching the pilot of The Newsroom because it's about the BP oil spill.
Yeah.
And the big thing in it is that it's called like the Minerals Service or something like that, Miners Minerals Service, whatever. It's a U.S. government agency.
Yeah.
And they inspect oil rigs.
Yeah.
There's like 50-something inspectors for literally thousands of oil rigs in the country. In order to inspect every one, they'd have to inspect 2 a day, 6 days a week for the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason why. That's one of the big reasons why the BP, what was it, like the Horizons,
Deepwater
Horizons, thank you, exploded, is because they couldn't inspect it that much. It was I think they said it was only inspected like 9 times in 2009.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they're supposed to be and they're also supposed to be inspected like twice a month or once a month, something like that.
Yeah.
That's what they count on, because they don't want government to be doing their job. They don't want government regulating and inspecting and all that stuff, because they want to make a profit and they want to cut corners by doing that. They want to cut corners while doing it.
But what fascinates me, though, is here, a big thing that happened under the Conservatives was there was the Lac-Mégantic accident. And what happened there was basically, it was a similar thing. The Canadian Rail, I don't know what the agency's called, it's supposed to inspect the trains. And you're supposed to have 2 people on a train if the train's going a certain distance. And what happened was the driver fell asleep through a difficult area, and the train derailed in a town and blew up a significant portion of this small town because it was taking oil.
Christ.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty big. It pretty much destroyed the downtown core of this city, and that embarrassed the government. And they were like, "We're going to do something about this." I just find it fascinating that Republicans aren't held accountable, though, for that. Like, it's something that confuses me so much. Is that their own constituents don't seem to be like everyone says we hate the government, but then it's like, but I love my guy though.
Well, no.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that first they deregulate, or they at least don't put in funding to regulate.
Yeah.
And then when something goes wrong, they say, "See, government can't do anything right." Like you just said, government can't do anything right. So with BP, for instance, when that happened, Deepwater Horizons happened, they said, "See, government inspectors can't do anything right. Let's cut the funding to the whatever service that was supposed to regulate." Wait, what?
Yeah.
But the thing is that people in America are so distrusting of the government because of the bullshit that they've done. They eat that up.
Mm-hmm.
They eat that up. They say, "Yeah, the government's bad. The government's bad." Well, yeah, of course it's bad. You keep cutting funding to it.
Yeah.
Of course they don't do their job. You won't let them.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's think you hit the nail on the head, man. and yeah, that's that. I guess that all sort of comes back to why I think the Jon Stewart versus Sean Hannity thing is so representative of the wider problem. It's that whole, that whole thing encapsulates that. It's you have Jon Stewart who did something. Jon Stewart actively has had a major effect on U.S. policy. He's advocated for people and actually advocated for passing laws that would help those people that he's advocating for, against someone who is just kind of a demagogue and gets angry when he's called out on it. And I think that's a wider, you could apply that to the wider political debate in a sense.
And I think why people respond to that, people see Sean Hannity doing that and they think, yeah, get up on him, and why people like Chris Christie so much. Because, for instance, when Bridgegate was happening, and the whole Hurricane Sandy thing is because he withheld Hurricane Sandy money to Democratic mayors who wouldn't endorse him for re-election. A heckler confronted him, and of course he's famous for handling hecklers, and he said, "You know what, buddy? Were you there when the hurricane happened? Were you leading the charge? The whole Rudy Giuliani, I was mayor of New York when 9/11 happened thing."
Yeah.
And the crowd loved it. The crowd ate it up. The crowd cheered for him. And he got reelected governor of New Jersey, one of the bluest states, never gone red in I don't know how long in a presidential election, but with 60% of the vote. Because they love the tough guy attitude. And you know what? So do I. That's why I like Alan Grayson. I like the tough guy attitude. But the thing is that unfortunately it's not on substance. It's just and the thing is that we've become so polarized.
Yeah.
That, and I mainly blame the media on that we don't want to listen to anybody else's opinions. That even slightly disagree with ours. So the second that we see someone, especially on national television, because it makes us feel better that someone that big is agreeing with us, just go foaming at the mouth, attacking whoever is attacking your ideas, whether it's baseful or not, we go, yeah, I love that, I eat that up. Liberals and conservatives do it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. I got nothing else to add.
Speaking of unnecessary militanism, I want to get to this before we have to go.
Yeah.
And speaking of the RNC, our two favorite internet personalities, finally, after all these years, got into a brawl.
Oh, yeah.
Sugar of the Young Turks and Alex Jones of whatever irrelevant conspiracy theory show he runs.
I know the name, but I'm not even going to say it now.
I'm pretty sure it's just called Conspiracy Theory with Alex Jones. I don't know. Or maybe that was Jesse Ventura. I forget. So there's a video of it. You've probably already seen it. If you haven't seen it, just type in Cenk Uygur, Alex Jones, RNC. You'll find it. The Young Turks actually put up the clip of it because it was on their show. It happened live on their show. They don't edit it or anything. They just have it as it is. And I'm not just saying that because I like them. They actually did, because I also saw the video of it that The Hill posted up. It was the same exact video. It's about 7 minutes long. So the Young Turks are at the RNC. They have a panel. I want to say it's Ben Mankiewicz, John Iadarola, Cenk, Anna, the usual.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, Alex Jones just decides to come on. He starts, basically invading the set. Cenk is visibly annoyed. And, Alex is making, kind of derisive comments, but in a friendly manner, kind of condescending. Saying, how you doing, sexy, and stuff like that to Cenk Uygur.
Yeah.
And they keep egging him on. See the video. Basically, it got into a brawl that had to be broken up by security.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what you think, because I have my opinion, but I want to know what you think first as to what happened.
Well, to my understanding, really, I if you watch it, it's when the third guy comes in. I can't remember what his name is.
Roger Stone.
Roger Stone. That's what really starts. It turns everything from like a friendly encounter between two rivals, which can be fun, into a more problematic event.
I think that's because Roger Stone, he's a self-described hitman for the Republican Party, and he doesn't have any official capacity on the Trump campaign, but
Mhm.
he has been noted as a close advisor of Donald Trump.
Yeah. So I think that's worth noting because one of the big things, because I'm the Canadian, I'll give you some Canadian context that really hurt Stephen Harper's campaign. We've probably mentioned it on the show when it broke. Was that he had basically the Australian equivalent of Stone brought on to try and help his re-election campaign for the most recent election here. And when that happened, that turned off so many people. It caused the media to view his campaign in such a more negative light. And it's noteworthy that to not be mean, it's noteworthy that that would not happen in the States, I don't think. I think they would have had him on TV. It would have been fine. He would have been viewed as a respected speaker at the table, whereas in the U.S. that's more likely to happen. I know Stone's not exactly at the height of his game anymore, but uh, the fact that he can even be on the Trump campaign is quite bad. Um, so I can understand why his presence would make Sank so angry, because from what I've read about this guy, it's the difference. It's the difference between, to make it extremely personal, it's the difference between my relationship, I think, with Jason Velli and Caden Cowger. Because I can actually talk to Jason Velli. I've done that. We have some sort of rapport. We've posted videos of each other. Caden Cowger, on the other hand, he just plays games that I just can't stand. And if I was to encounter him, I would probably have, if he was to crash this hangout right now, I would have a much more aggressive response to that than Jason Velli, just because of the kind of people they are, the level of respect I have for their opinion, and so on and so forth. It's and the other thing is simply put, Alex Jones is a crazy guy. Alex Jones is harmless because he's just so off the wall and has such a small viewership that you can have fun with Alex Jones. You can play games with him for a bit, but Stone is not that. Stone, I think, has some powerful people who respect his opinion, and it's scary.
Yeah. See, the problem is when it comes to American politics, is the respectable people on the other aisle have kind of either lost their way or been defeated,
Yeah.
and by the more radical voices in the party.
Mhm.
That's why whenever we do stories and we talk about when we absolutely lambast anything conservatives or Republicans do, I try my best to emphasize that it's the elected people or
Yeah.
the people who are have an official capacity rather than the voters, because the voters are very different.
Yeah.
The voters are people like yourself and I, and same goes for Canada and any other country, who can be swayed in their opinion and can be decent people, and they stand for what they do because they think they're being decent people. When it comes to these guys, uh, and same goes on the Democratic Party when it comes to being bought out. They're not in it for the principle; they're in it because they want power.
Yeah.
And they will do whatever they can to get that power, whether it's being corrupt or being a demagogue.
Mhm.
Uh, that's why I always say, my friend Will, who was supposed to come on one of our previous shows, but unfortunately couldn't. He's a conservative friend of mine, and I enjoy having political discussions with him
Yeah.
because we're both respectable of each other's opinions and we can have a decent conversation without getting at each other's throats. If you sat me in a room with Alex Jones or Roger Stone, kind of like with you, Christian, with what you're saying, I would not be as patient with them.
Well, Alex Jones, I'd be patient because Alex Jones, it's just if you ever watch a show, it's just fun to just kick back and have no idea what he's talking about.
Well, I mean in the sense of if I was in Shank's position,
Yeah,
at the RNC, if we were doing this show live from the RNC,
yeah,
and out of nowhere, Caden Cowger, Roger Stone, Alex Jones, or the like,
yeah,
came on and started messing with us, started making comments about my physical appearance and, condescendingly talking about our show and stuff like that, I would not be as patient with them. As, obviously I'm not a big guy like Shank. I wouldn't be very intimidating. I'm probably taller than Alex Jones, but because I'm a pretty tall person, but I'm very lanky, so that doesn't really matter. And I'm also 18. But I probably would get up into his face and be like, no, screw off. Like, get off this set. This is our show. We're trying to do our show. Be respectful and leave.
There's also an interesting thing I also realized a bit after that I think is worth mentioning is what he called Anna, right? He called her something like Jihadi Jane or something like that.
See, I heard that because there is a point, for those of you who haven't seen the video, where it starts to get chaotic, where Chank starts to raise his voice, and out of nowhere, Alex Jones and Roger Stone pull this stuff out of their ass where they're saying that TYT doesn't talk about Saudi Arabia enough, and they call Anna. I thought they made a reference to Anna being Armenian, but I wasn't sure. Because I could tell he made some sort of comment that really pissed her off.
Yeah.
Because she starts getting up and calling him names.
Yeah.
And it really gets out of hand at that point.
Yeah.
Did he call her Jihadi Jane? Is that it? Because I know he said jihad something.
That's what Anna said he said. And that's what it sort of sounds like if you watch again. But what I'm getting at is I'm wondering if perhaps if he didn't know it because he's not smart enough to, but he got into some like historical regional issues with that because Armenians were kind of had a genocide against them and have historically been oppressed for being Christians. So to say she's a jihadi Jane is to like really like say things that would be quite offensive to people from that region. And I wonder if he just wasn't smart enough to realize that he touched on something that's very sensitive and delicate to, considering Anna's Armenian, Shank's Turkish. I don't know if he ended up and the other thing is, Turks really don't like Saudis historically. So I'm just wondering if he also sort of played on that element of it and didn't notice he had, and that's what caused Shank to be so emotional, angry about it, is because he just that's like an assault on his Turkishness almost in a sense, and Anna's Armenian background, and he probably just didn't know that.
See, it's hard to tell with someone like him because he throughout the entire time he was being very condescending and trying to push buttons because one of the first comments he made was say how you doing sexy to Cenk Uygur. That was a big thing that really was noticeable to me because obviously Cenk to the average person isn't that attractive because he is a heavier guy and he is conscious of that.
Yeah.
So I want to say Alex Jones isn't as dumb as Donald Trump because I think Donald Trump would probably, say this isn't a shouting match between Cenk Uygur and Donald Trump or Alex Jones. It's between Donald Trump and Cenk Uygur. If Donald Trump had said something like that, I would say, oh, he said that because he's stupid. Mm-hmm. Like he literally just doesn't know what he's saying because Trump has done stuff like that in the past.
Yeah.
Alex Jones, however, I don't think he's that intelligent. I think he knows enough. And it's, such a small community where they're both fighting in. Because let's face it, the Young Turks and Alex Jones, while Alex Jones is smaller, they're both not that big, and they're kind of fighting their own little war on their own little minor league, as the big boys are playing in bigger leagues. I think he probably knew that. He probably knew exactly what he was saying, and he was just doing it just to rile Cenk up, because that's all that seemed to be, was trying to push buttons and get them angered. And he saw Anna, and he thought, oh, this is the perfect thing to touch on, Turkish history of oppressing Armenians, as well as, just calling them terrorists because he's Turkish.
Yeah. Maybe. I just think Alex Jones is. If you've ever watched this show, I think he was trying to play to his whole. The radical left is aligned with Muslim extremists thing. I think he was just playing on that, and then I think I have the sense he was just playing on that, and unaware of the fact that he was stepping into like a 1,000-year-old minefield.
I don't know,
and perhaps even Cenk didn't even didn't even realize that that's why he was got so emotional about it, because that's playing on something he probably grew up with.
Yeah.
Anna grew up with, but don't really think about much in the U.S. because it's usually not an issue here.
Well, I think they might not say it on air, and it's very unlike them to do this. They might have not said it on air, because I watched their review of it afterwards, and they didn't mention it. But as far as I could tell, I think they were aware, and behind closed doors they were like, hey, he totally did that to try to poke at us because of this, because they do talk a lot, not only about Saudi Arabia, which Alex Jones was completely wrong about, but again, I think he was doing that just to hit, push buttons. But I think, because they often on the show talk about the Armenian genocide and how Turkey was, or what was the Ottoman Empire, how it was responsible for that. And they have been one of the only, even left-wing outlets that I've seen, whether commentary or news, that have constantly been pushing for not only knowledge of the Armenian genocide, but for the U.S. government to recognize that it happened.
Yeah.
Because they don't because they don't want to piss off Turkey.
Hey, that'd be a perfect way to get back at Erdogan, man. Just saying.
Oh yeah, we don't have time to get to that story. Oopsie.
Yeah.
Well, one of us will make a video about it.
Yeah.
And cover it. So yeah, it's 8:30. It's been about an hour. Let's cover real quick just the whole WikiLeaks thing with the DNC emails, if we can, just real quick.
To take a line from my favorite internet personality, down with Schultz! Down with Schultz!
I feel like that's what he's going to lead with.
Yeah.
Once it starts, I can't wait to see that. Yeah, so basically, a lot of people viewing probably don't know this. So earlier today, either earlier today or yesterday, WikiLeaks came out with a series of emails that very clearly showed that the Democratic National Committee was actively trying to sink Bernie Sanders' campaign for president. And really, it's no surprise, because Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chair of the DNC, was 8 years ago Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. But that's besides the point. So that's been happening. And of course, there's always been those calls for Debbie Wasserman Schultz on the far left to resign. She obviously has a primary challenge right now, which the guy might win. It's been looking more and more likely he might win for her congressional seat, because she's also a congresswoman from Florida. Today, it was amazing. Today, I saw this unravel. In the morning, I saw a story that said Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been kicked off, has been not asked to leave, but has been forcibly removed, because of this email scandal, this new email scandal, from the list of DNC speakers. and then just a few hours later announced she's resigning as the chair of the DNC. That is amazing. That is democracy in action, and I love WikiLeaks for that, because let's face it, no amount of progressive grassroots pressure was going to make her resign, especially since Bernie didn't win.
Yeah.
But because of these emails, there is no way she could have stayed on.
Yeah.
There's just no way, because it was clear that she was leading an effort within the DNC to sink his campaign. And when that happens, a Republican might do that and then not resign because they just have that much gall. But no, Debbie Wasserman Schultz decided to take the David Cameron route and say, all right, even though my side won, I lost. So I have to take the fall for this. Like, it is undoubtable I have to take the fall for this.
Yeah. So hopefully not good. Hopefully.
Yeah. It's I mean, I don't know what people expect. Like, yeah, I don't like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and it would have been nicer earlier on if she resigned, because it was just I was saying that just because she had a clear bias towards Hillary Clinton because she had such a close connection with her.
Are
But
you
at the
saying
same,
that she was supporting Hillary Clinton because she was a woman, Matthew? Is that what you're playing at?
of course I am. Of course, Bernie Bros 5 Live. Ah!
Yeah.
No, but if she had done that, if she had stepped aside and then had at least an apparently neutral person step up and be the chair, or maybe just the acting chair for when the primaries happened up until the convention, that would be great. That would be great. And, again, I still don't like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She's corrupt as hell, and she's a typical party hack. But, I mean, who is going to be the chairman of the party and not be a hack? A party hack? Like, that's kind of impossible.
True.
And contradictory. But
yeah,
it would be like Donald Trump himself being the chair of the Republican Party. It just doesn't make any sense because he doesn't have any real connection to the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
But that's besides the point. So she, so we're not going to really. Chances are we're probably not going to get another Howard Dean to be the chair of the DNC. We're probably going to get another person who's like Debbie Wasserman Schultz or Tim King or Terry McAuliffe.
Well, you know what? In my opinion, that's fine, so long as they know that next time that they can't just do what Schultz did and be that incredibly openly biased to one candidate. Because as you said, you're not going to get anyone who's at least on a personal level significantly different. But if you can at least get an in practice different, that could be enough. That's enough. And I think to some degree, the Democrats are slowly experiencing what the Republicans did maybe 4 years ago, where they're having somewhere in the base, there's just too much anger, and it's leading to a slow, systematic change of of the party's internal workings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a very public face to that change that has already been happening and will continue to happen. And I think it's enough in on itself that movement was capable of usurping a character like Schultz. I think perhaps it is worth it for that alone.
And I wouldn't be surprised, to your point there, that if Donald Trump is elected, and that section of the dying wing of the Democratic Party that you speak of, loses this election, I can definitely see a sort of new Occupy Wall Street or a Democratic version of the Tea Party that obviously doesn't have corporate backing because
that's an inherently anti-corporatist position.
Exactly. And that this movement has been built on grassroots, and for a while has been built on grassroots and not taking corporate money, unlike the Tea Party, which kind of basically started out like that.
Yeah.
I can definitely see them, especially if Trump is elected, just going full throttle and being like, all right, no more Mr. Nice Guy. No more, like, we love Bernie Sanders, but no more acting like Bernie Sanders. We are going to be Alan Grayson.
Yeah, which I could very much see happening. And that gets back to what I've been saying for a few weeks now. I think the Democrats, with Hillary Clinton, potentially have missed the tide of history. And my hope is that it doesn't bite them, because if it bites them, it bites the U.S. But it's completely possible that I'm right. They missed the tide of history, and it's gonna hurt.
Yeah. Well, I guess we just have to sit by and see what happens. I'm interested to see what happens.
Pretty much.
And, a similar thing, I guess you can say, is going on with the Labor Party right now. And obviously, we're going to see the ramifications of that much sooner with the new leadership election. But I'm interested to see how that folds out as well, because, obviously, we know what the end game is going to be if the labor establishment wins. All of Corbyn's supporters in the parliament,
it's going to be a purge, basically.
Yeah, they're all going to bow their heads. He's going to fall back to the wayside again, and then business is going to be unusual. But I'm interested to see what happens if he wins.
Yeah, that's because that'll be a reaffirmation that they can't ignore, and that'll be quite. And the big thing is, it's not like the U.S. so much, where there's a certain amount of time you have to have been a member of the Labor Party to be able to take part. You can just join like 2 weeks in advance, and that's about it.
Except you gotta pay £25 in order to vote in the leadership election.
So you have to pay £25 on top of the membership fee, or is it's just the membership fee is £25?
I want to say that's just the membership fee.
Okay, that's not ridiculous though. It's
like, but I find that interesting because there is no party membership fee in the U.S. Like, there is dues if you want to be involved in your local Democratic or Republican Party. But if you just want to be a registered Democrat, or registered Republican, or registered anything, you don't have to pay money.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess in a parliamentary system, you're just more comfortable with that being a fact of life. I don't think it's that. I think it's like $7 for the NDP.
I kind of, I don't know. Now that I think about it, I kind of like that because
it avoids it avoids people from the other party just coming in to mess things up on you, I guess, is the idea.
That too, and it kind of lends to the whole public funding of elections, because that quite literally is the public funding your election.
Pretty much, yeah. So right. Anyway, we're good. We've been here for too long.
Yeah, and I got to get going. I have a thing to go to. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. I forget if it's next Sunday or the Sunday after that.
Next Sunday.
We will be joining you from Boston together, which will be very exciting.
We'll be live in Boston. I won't tell you where we are, but we'll be live in Boston.
We'll be somewhere. I don't know. And we actually might have a different perspective with us as well.
That'd be cool, man.
All right. Thank you guys very much. Have a good night. See you guys next time and all that jazz. Have mouse toward them.
Unless they're Trump.